Hello. So, how's it going, everyone? If you're here because of the clickbaity title, I will probably touch on this. It's not totally clickbait. I am going to touch on this, but really, I wanted to try out StreamYard. So I have no clue if this is even working yet. So say hello if you're here. I'm gonna also probably share this link out. Really, it's just been a while, and I wanted to just say hello. So if you have any questions, there are some things that I wanted to talk about, but if you have any questions or if you just wanted to say hello, go ahead and do that. And give me just a minute. Hello to the person who is here. I will get to the question in the title at some point. I'm just sharing this link, so say hello if you're here. I've been so busy lately that I haven't really been making as many videos as I'd like. So I figured it would be a good way to just sort of jump in because I've found myself having like dozens of video ideas and not sure which one to start. And for me, whenever I have like so many ideas going on at once, it's like I'm not very. Oh, I see everyone's. Whoa, sorry. I'm new to StreamYard, and everybody just said hello at the same time. So, hello, Kat. Look at this. Hello, Andy. Hello, Eric. Hello, Sam. Hello, Austin. Hello, Devin. That's going to be really fun for me. So, yeah, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. I will be getting to the question that you probably clicked on this video for. I feel like I keep saying that, but yeah, I don't know if you guys all just said hello at the same time or if it just didn't show me the comments until just now. So if you guys can let me know that, that'd be great. But yeah, as I was just saying, for me, ever since I started my YouTube channel, I have just had continuous ideas of video topics pop into my head, and my strategy has been pretty much just to share what I have to say whenever I feel like it, which I think is a pretty good strategy at some point. But I think because my life has really been so busy lately, I have kind of forced myself to not post as much about typology. Maybe you guys didn't even notice, but for me, it was definitely the biggest break of typology that I have done, I guess, since I really started regularly making videos in 2017. So for me, it really was a good time to reflect on how I wish to engage in this community and just my thoughts on things. And yeah, I guess, sorry, to finish my thought from earlier, it's weird. I guess I feel like it's easier to just jump right in with a live stream and talk directly to you guys than it is to pick which of the 15 video ideas I should start with, because for me, I weirdly feel like guilty that I haven't been making videos, even though my life has been just a complete clusterfuck lately. So if anyone has any questions or conversation topics, you can go ahead with that. But I guess I'm going to just jump into a few announcements just while I'm here, is that I literally just thought of this idea moments ago, and I shared it on Twitter and on YouTube. But in 2020, starting January, I want to do like a typology reading challenge. And I kind of got this idea from chatting with Jamie from Your Chill ISFJ. I really liked some of her videos that were book reviews, and I was like, I really want to read more. I have so many books that I kind of have started and not finished. And I know that for me, it's really motivating for me to have a friend or a few other people that are reading the same thing to motivate me. And if you're like me, that might be motivating to you as well. And so what I thought would be fun is to do this typology challenge where we will select a book once a month and then we can all read it together. And I will be doing a video once a month about that book and kind of share the things that stuck out to me. And really, whether you read it or not and participate in the challenge, it won't really matter because I want to be getting the insight of the book and then giving it to you and reflecting on it. Anyway, and it could just be really interesting if we had lots of people doing it. Pretty much the hashtag is typology. Let me just make sure I'm correct about the hashtag. The hashtag is hashtag typology reading challenge 2020. And so if you're interested, you can make a video about it, and then I can make a playlist of all of the people that share the review and follow along. And the first book that we're going to be doing is Personality Type, an Owner's Manual. Sorry, I'll turn off my Slack notifications. Personality Type, an Owner's Manual, a practical guide to understanding yourself and others through typology by Lenore Thompson. This is one of the most influential books that I've ever read about typology. I did read it all the way through in a couple days, like a few years ago, and I haven't read it in a while. I don't think I've read it since I started regularly making videos, and it's one of my biggest influences, and I think it's one of the most readable ones that is also very accurate, in my opinion. The author's an INTJ, so they go very in depth of what the person is. Not that I'm no shade to other books saying that they don't do that, but personally, I really liked it. But I haven't read it in a really, really long time, and so I thought it would be a great start for me to reread it and also to sort of do a review and reflection of the book for you guys. And it's one I recommend all the time to people, so it could be just a good one to start. So yeah, the goal of this really is just, I have been wanting to revive my interest in making videos because, as I mentioned, I have been really busy the past couple months. I switched jobs, and a lot has changed in my life in a very short amount of time. And I've been literally, my schedule's been packed like 80 hours a week. And I pretty much realized that I was burnt out and that I needed to do something about it fast, and I needed to change my life really fast, and I did. So yeah, I do that to myself sometimes. But anyway, I found myself during that time realizing that I was actually happy to not be making videos. Like, that maybe I should have been giving myself more of a break sporadically. I found myself not even reading the comments and just being like, ugh, I don't even want to think about it right now. Which, if you are very invested in something intensely for a long period of time, that can happen. So it doesn't mean my love of typology has changed at all. It's just, I definitely am realizing I need that break, and I'm going to be even more excited to, share more. Yeah, Kat says you do too much, Megan, and that's very true. And I think that's really what I'm realizing is, I keep saying that. And if you know me and if you've watched my videos, you might think, oh, you keep realizing the same thing. And honestly, that's kind of what life as me feels like, is that I'm always realizing the next level of the realization that I already had. So whatever. But pretty much, oh, hold on. Kat just says, I remember I had a psychic dream a month ago that you were going to burn out. Yeah. I can't remember when that was, but pretty much in November, I realized I need to change the trajectory of my career is not, I can't fool myself with all of these projects that I don't care about as much. as the projects I do care about. And really, it was my fear of canceling contracts, my fear of saying, no, thank you. I don't want to help you, even though you're willing to pay me, because I don't care about your business. Not that I would say it like that, but for me, that was hard. Is, for example, I had a part-time job at a nonprofit for over a year, and the people there were very, very nice. And, I just wasn't paid enough for what I was doing. And it doesn't matter how nice my boss was if I did not, at the end of the day, feel like it was a worthy investment for me. So that was obviously a challenge for me. I had to go out and find, other job. Crystal said, for the record, during this break, Megan's FI has gotten so good. She didn't take a break from talking to me. If you'd like to brag on me, that would be great, because I feel like, well, not that I want to brag on me, but I really don't. The way that Crystal has noticed these shifts in me, it's really weird because I don't even really notice them. But Crystal, if you don't know, my ENFP 4-wing-3 best friend, co-host of my podcast, Synchronic Saturdays, we've been through a lot together. And actually, to kind of touch at, well, how do I want to word this? We've been through a lot together, and actually that brings me to the point of this video, and a little bit of how I view typology. Crystal's an ENFP, and if it was not for the cognitive functions and both of us understanding the cognitive functions, I'm not so sure that we would be friends. And that matters to me. I don't mean to get emotional here. I didn't expect to, but that matters to me because I care about that bitch. And, I get very heated sometimes about personality type and about how I view things. And it's because it changed my life. And if it wasn't for the ways that I understand the functions, you don't have to agree with the way that I view the functions. But if it wasn't for the understanding that Crystal and I together was able to have, then I don't think that we would be friends. And that matters to me. And I think that that tool is powerful enough to do that. So anyway, I'll talk more about that later. But what I was going to say regarding this comment is that it's so weird because she's known me for a long time. And, in socionics, as I'm an EIE and I'm FI ignoring, I do sometimes ignore the deep feelings or the deep personal, I don't know how you want to word it, guys. I'm too tired to go into the deep definitions right now. But yeah, Crystal says, pretty sure we wouldn't be. It's easier for me to gloss over some of my feelings sometimes in ways that I don't even notice. And so it's really validating for me whenever I do, since Crystal has known me for a long enough time where she can see the differences and how I may be more aligned with my FI or more authentic in certain ways or whatever. My goal, which I'll talk about this more later, my goal really is to go through Carl Jung's individuation process. And I've talked about that process in other videos, but my goal with personality typology is the understanding that my ego has a personality. My soul does not have a personality. My soul transcends that. And the ego has a personality though. And everybody has a personality and everybody has an ego. And that's okay because we're all human. And even if we might come from all the same source and we might all come from God and we might all be one, whatever it is you believe, I'm still a human and I'm still Meghan LeVota right now. At least in this lifetime, I am a human. And if all the NI users can say, hey, to that comment, if you have any clue what I'm talking about. I see Lonnie there saying ego has a personality. I feel like hopefully you're vibing with what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm a human in this lifetime and I have a personality, but the real essence of my soul, and this is what I believe, by the way, obviously, everything I say is what I believe, but what was I saying? Maybe the essence of my soul can transcend that or whatever, but we always are going to have an ego in some way, shape, or form. And in my opinion, the solution is, I guess, this solution for, I don't know, enlightenment, self-fulfillment, actualization, whatever you want to call it. The path, in my opinion, is you don't just erase the ego. You don't just pretend you don't have an ego. You can integrate it within your being. And that's what I aim to do. And that's what I aim to do with personality type. And Carl Jung, while he also shared the theory of the 8 cognitive functions, he also talked about individuation process and how one can become self-actualized. And really, at the end of the day, I got into personality type because I wanted to know who I was and I wanted to grow. So if you are with me and that's why you got into personality type, you might also really be interested in Carl Jung's work on self-actualization and the individuation process as well, if you aren't already familiar. Because really, it's almost like I was seeking self-actualization and I found personality. But personality in and of itself, it's just really a description of the ego. It's not going to solve what you're looking for. And what I'm interested in is sort of combining what I've learned about personality type with self-actualization and integration. So I think what happens is that a lot of us come to this community because we want that, because we want to feel integrated. We don't want to, we want to work with our personality. We don't want to just pretend like we don't have one. I think there are some people who maybe aren't into personality who they don't really like it because they think, well, I'm much more complex than that. I'm not just an extrovert. I'm not just an introvert. And to those who say that, I completely feel you, because it is a lot more complex than that. But I think that when you work with the ego and not against it, there could be this sort of, it's a lot easier path where it's like you are aware of how your brain cognition works and the ways that your ego is holding you back, but also the ways that your ego makes you really special and unique. Because if we were all one, if we were just all swimming around in heaven as light beams or whatever, and we were just all connected in this light mush or whatever, that might be really fun because we might feel really connected, but we also wouldn't really be that unique or that individual because we would just all be together all the time. Whatever, if you believe that. I'm just going on a rant here. But because we are humans and because we are super different and there's been no one else like you, no matter what, there's been no one else like you. You're chill ISFJ. I better be a purple light beam. Well, I have purple as my brand color right next to your name with this StreamYard thing. So you can enjoy that. It's my favorite color. So anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, there's no one like you, blah, blah, blah. You were in the middle of a motivational speech by an ENFJ type 2, and I was reminding you that, yeah, there's no one like you, in case you've never heard that before. So yeah, there's no one like you. You're unique. Yeah. We get it. But your ego, that's the thing, is that it's what makes you unique. It's also what can hold you back and try and pull you away from the connection of us all being one. And so it's very helpful to identify what the ego is, because we want to know what we're working with, right? If I realize that I'm an extrovert, then it's that's really helpful to me, because that means that I probably really ignore my inner world naturally. So Does that mean that I should just continue to compulsively describe my ego and make excuses for it? I don't believe so. I don't believe so at all. And I believe that the path to growth is in integrating the pieces of you that you do not currently associate with, you do not currently relate to, or you don't have conscious control over it. And that right there is kind of the thesis of how I view typology. So I'm going to kind of look at the comments. If there's anything that I've said that has been confusing or weird, just let me know. But I'm going to look back at the comments and respond to some things that you guys have said. Crystal says, my life would suck because my NI would be dead. I'm assuming she's talking about if I wasn't her friend. And I'm very curious to hear what your NI being dead would feel like or look like. Kat says, that's a really beautiful way to put it, Megan, that the ego has a personality. That's how I feel about Enneagram. Yeah, I feel like all personality systems to some extent, I would probably say, is describing the ego of some sort. And I think that a lot of people will talk about the ego with a negative connotation, and I don't think it has to be that way. I think, when people say that someone has a big ego or that they rely too much on their ego, I think really what they're saying is that they're closed-minded and that they're really looking at who they are so much and they're inflating their own perspective and their own self-importance. But it's okay to have a perspective and it's okay to be an individual, obviously. So, yeah. So Ashley says that's the total reason I'm into this. And I'm assuming that you were talking about self-growth and stuff. And that makes me really happy to hear. And I think that that's the case for probably most of us. It doesn't feel like that all the time, but sometimes when we're different personality types with different strengths and weaknesses, the way that we grow is very different. And so you might view another person, maybe in the community or maybe just someone who's a different type as you, as someone who you might view them as like really unhealthy or like a really bad person. But really, what that could be is just that they have different strengths and weaknesses than you. And maybe their weakness, their main thing, is one of your strengths. And so when you view them, you're judging them by your standards. And that could be triggering to you because it could remind you of all of the ways in which your standards of your strengths are not met in the world. And it's just, maybe they represent something to you of a part of you that has not fully been integrated in you. So I can go into examples of that some other time or maybe later, but I feel like I've been realizing this a lot lately of how people that I maybe don't click with or maybe I don't like very much, whether or not, like, I'm not saying that I should be best friends with everyone, but I think that you should treat everyone not only with respect to their face, but also not to their face in the sense that respect the fact that there is probably an aspect of them that represents the part of you that is wounded or that is not something that you're repressing in yourself. So, for example, people that are really critical of people that are just, they like to critique without actually trying anything themselves, that can be triggering to me because I think, why are people so mean? Why are people so lazy? And in a way, it's almost like repressing the part of myself that needs rest, and also repressing the part of myself that, you know, could stand to be a little bit less nice and a little bit more discerning and critical. So Lonnie says we are a collective consciousness, but still individuals who deserve to share their own experiences and perspectives. A tribe, but still your own warrior. I definitely relate to that. And I think that the experience of life, the experience of being a human, is that we have all of these unique aspects to who we are. And it's like we're trying to somehow find our tribe. I have this thing on my wall that it was like a card that I bought at an antique store, and I think someone made it, but it says, "Find the others." And I really like that quote, and I look at it a lot and think about how almost like the goal in life is, at least for me, realizing that I'm not alone, and also that there are others who have similar goals as me and similar values as me and all of that. And I think everyone feels alone, and I think that's kind of part of the trick of we're tricked into thinking that we aren't all one. At least this is my belief. And, you know, all of you guys being here listening really means a lot to me, because I've had to push myself a lot to get out of my comfort zone and to not care what people think in order to get push through and actually find the others, because you won't find the others if you're too afraid to go out and find them. So Heather Bryant says, I just got here, but I think when people talk about having a big ego or ego death, they mean something different than Jung's concept of the ego. It's just unfortunate that the two terms got conflated. I think that's a really good point, and it makes me really want to go in and explore all the different aspects of how people define ego. Jung's definition really resonates with me, and it's probably the one that I think of whenever I was saying, like, oh, I don't think an ego is that bad, or it's kind of I think it's morally neutral. But I might explore that in another video, because I plan to use that term a lot more in the future. So this is a really good point. Your chill ISFJ says, I've been told that when you hate a fictional character, it's because they reflect aspects of yourself that you suck at, or things that are negative, and I love that. I think that that's very true, and this is kind of tangentially related, but I recently watched a YouTube video. I don't know who did it, or like the name of it, but if you Googled it, you could probably find it. It was about the Mean Girls trope, and it kind of talked about the movie Mean Girls, but other like famous Mean Girls. And it was talking about like how when people write about villains, they always write like a hero and a villain in the story. But if you really take a deeper look, the villain is hurting too, and a villain is like the hero in their own story. And it talked about how the mean girl like trope, often they are like women that feel like they have to repress their rage and like be perfect, and that they don't have outlets to express either their anger in a healthy way because they're women and like not men. I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, I think that's definitely the case. So Heather says, having a big ego means being full of yourself, which shows low self-esteem or low self-awareness, or of our weaknesses and flaws, which is precisely what typology for self-growth aims to address. I completely agree with that. I also think it's weird. The bigger the ego, it's almost a weird phrase to me, because if you have a big ego, really, I would say that you're small-minded. So it's sort of like, okay, how does that work? Your ego's big, but in comparison to what? It's almost like the bigger the ego, the smaller the piece of your personality are you um, clinging on to, in my opinion. Like, I think ENFJs that are really big egos are like a slave to the extroverted feeling world. So that's just one way of looking at it. So yeah, a couple things. Wait, how do I get rid of that comment? No. A couple things. I want to talk a little bit about what the title of his video is, but I also just want to share really quick for those who are curious and would be interested. So several months ago, whenever Crystal and I started offering our typing services, which you can still do, by the way, there is a link below. With the holidays and with both of us sort of changing our job situation, there's been more of a delay. So there are probably some of you that I have yet to email. But anyway, my point is that since we've done that typology, like typing service thing, we have typed descriptions written of each of the 16 types that are each 3 pages. And I am releasing those on Patreon once a week. I've already done 2. So if you're interested, the lowest, it's like starting at $5 to become a Patreon, and you can quit at any time, whatever. But I am going to be releasing them once a week for, I guess, like 14 more weeks now. So if you're curious about reading those, I really wanted to figure out a way to both, I don't know, I knew I needed to charge something for them, but I also want them to be really, really cheap for everyone, and they probably won't be behind a paywall forever. I'll probably turn them into an ebook. That's something I'm kind of working on, but I've just been having these 3 pages of each for a long time, and I didn't know if I should I'm kind of giving too much information probably now, but I didn't know if I should sell them on their own or what, if they were, but yeah, anyway, I'm just posting them as blog posts on Patreon if you are curious. But also, if you do a typing session with Crystal and I, where we type you via a video typing session, you do get all 16 of them. So, but also if we do type you for the cheaper version, then you will get the top 4. So some of you may already have them. So if you're considering just getting them, you might as well consider maybe getting typed if you don't know what your type is. But if you think you know, then whatever. But yeah, I guess I've been putting off for probably for so many months now. Like, I had those written since June. I've been putting off putting them into an ebook. But they will be eventually, but for now they're going to be on Patreon. So, because another thing that I put this on Patreon, but I also just want to say this here. As I was sort of sharing at the beginning, I struggle with overloading my schedule. I struggle with saying no to things. I struggle with boundaries, all that. So I also struggle with asking for help and asking for things. So in honor of me trying to not do that, I'm asking for you guys. On Patreon, I wrote about this as well, is that I am planning on attending the, oh gosh, now I need to know what it's called, so I don't ruin this. I'm planning on attending the Association for Psychological Type International Conference next year. And that's going to be a bit of a splurge for me. And since I feel uncomfortable asking people to donate to Patreon for no damn reason, I'm asking that if you would like to donate, that I'm going to be documenting that, a lot of that trip, and you'll receive like a thank you for helping me attend. And so yeah. And also you get the type, you get the articles about type. So that's another thing. So that's all linked below. But yeah, I'm really excited because for those of you who don't know, I haven't even done a recap on this, but I did do a in-person event in LA in October. And oh my gosh, right after that event, it was such a whirlwind trying to put it all together. And it was really fun. And for those of you who are here for the live stream, I really appreciate it. I understand that the audio was not great. So those that stuck through despite that, I really appreciate it. There are definitely some ways that that could have gone better. But overall, I was very happy with it. I was very happy with the turnout, and I had a lot of fun for those of you who were there. It was just absolutely so much fun interacting with people in real life, and I loved it, and I would love to do more of that. Like, seriously, I felt so at home. So I haven't even talked about that since, because yeah, right after that, I started applying for other jobs, and I haven't, as you can tell, from my FE in this video, I'm like feeling guilty for like literally no reason. Like, I never, as though you guys care if I told, like, I just feel weirdly so just naturally, I feel just responsible for things like that, which is really weird. I'm trying to shake that. But anyway, it also was really nice that Dario Nardi, the neuroscientist and typologist who has written many books, he was able to attend, and I was able to get a brain scan from him and connect with him. And I have a lot to share about that as well, that I will be making videos about, like my brain scan, kind of unpacking that. I still need to sort of catch up on, you know, his books and stuff too, so that I can share that, because that was just really exciting to me. And I think, you know, he mentioned this conference to me, and it really just got me thinking that I want to start to be more of a bridge between like the real life type community, people who actually do this for a living, and the online community. I would love to just communicate more of the things that are happening in the type world online, and not just be super reactive to what I see online, because sometimes what you see online is not that it's not accurate, but I think that a lot of misinformation can happen online because it's a lot of young people and a lot of newbies on social media talking about this stuff, which is great. And I'm relatively new. I mean, Dario Nardi's been doing this for 25 years. Like, I've been studying type for 8 years. I've charged money for it for less than a year, maybe a year if you argue that I did offer a couple things last year, but I'm new to it. And, you know, I straight up told him, I was like, I want mentors that are doing this. I want to do this the right way. I don't want to just be some girl on the internet. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was like, what do I do? I was like, I want to do this ethically. Do I need a system? Do I need a taxonomy? What the hell do I do? Like, how do I make sure I don't mess up, pretty much? And I was able to be connected with a couple ENFJs who have been doing this for over 25 years. And that was really great and really life-changing, honestly, for me. Really to have that in-person event and to have that conversation and to find out about this conference. It's just been like, I've just been thinking a lot about my future with this and my values. So, all right, I'm going to sort of check out what you guys have been saying. So Austin says, I plan on hosting a typology meetup in Miami at the first quarter of next year. That would be very interesting. I would love to see more meetups like that. And if anyone wanted to film them, not that you have to film them, but I think that could just be super cool to get people involved. Ayol says, I always wanted a brain scan. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how in the future if that technology can become more accessible to people and whatnot. But if you have any specific questions about that stuff, um, let me know your thoughts on that. And your chill eyes of Jay, I'm so glad you met him. Thank you. But also, I'm bringing up her channel because she has done a good video on it. And also, Introverted Thinker, lucky you. She has also done a good video on it. So she's interviewed Dario Nardi and gotten her brain scan as well. So there might be a video collab where we compare the brains of an INTP and an ENFJ. Also, hello, Grace. How's it going? Just wanted to say hi. What was I saying? Yeah, I was kind of just talking about the trajectory of my career, I guess, and things I've been thinking about. So, yeah, I had that conversation. I was like, do I need a taxonomy? Like, should I stop saying things until I have a taxonomy? And whatever. And I bought a lot more books about things. I've just been thinking about things like, for example, this book, the books that I use to prop up my computer. The 16 Personality Types Descriptions by Linda Behrens and Dario Nardi. I'm familiar with both of their work, but I've never seen this book, which is fairly cheap. It was easy to get on Amazon. And it's honestly, I have not read all of the profiles, but just reading the very beginning, I would say this is a very, very great book for beginners in the sense that at the very beginning, they touch on so many sort of things that you might be, or like common questions that you might have thought of, or like common things in the type community that you find yourself repeating over and over, like these sort of premises of that we all understand, like, oh, that we can't change types, or that I get it, Joe, you're introverted sometimes, that sort of thing. Like they do a really good job of just like, for example, this one, I just am going to read this aloud actually because it kind of fits my thoughts on the question in the title of this video. This says, okay, over the years, philosophers and behavioral scientists have been trying to find ways to understand what they call personality. The word personality has many meanings, but we like the definition given by Salvatore Madi. Personality is a stable set of characteristics and tendencies that determine those commonalities and differences in the psychological behavior, thoughts, feelings, and actions of people that have continuity in time and that may not be easily understood as the sole result of the social and biological pressures of a moment. And then the part that it's like one of my favorite parts, is there's this question that says, there are so many models to explain personality. How can all of these models be right? Which one is the best? Is there a way to take the best of each of them and not waste lots of time and effort? I think a lot of us probably have that question. Personality typing is popular, and most widely used models ultimately will describe 16 patterns. This booklet provides the descriptions that best represent the best of all of these models. These 16 type descriptions are not derived from a single framework, such as social styles, temperament theory, or psychological type. They are descriptive of 16 universal themes that exist in and of themselves, yet reflect all of the available frameworks. So that pretty much sums up my view on what my taxonomy is for those who want to know. I feel the need to read just this last bit. I'm sorry I'm reading at you, but I'm realizing that this answers my question better than I could. It says, but it's good to consider multiple models. You can't know the whole by looking at just the parts. There must be a universal theme. Furthermore, what are the underlying assumptions behind personality? Historically, professionals have alternated between the idea that personality is inborn and the seemingly opposite view that it results from our experience. The most current thinking is that personality is both inborn and conditioned by the environment. So I'm going to kind of stop there. I can talk more later. Just for those who maybe you jumped in, the 16 Personality Types by Linda Behrens and Dario Nardi. That's what the book is. So pretty much the use of the term type patterns. I'm going to make a video on this later because I've noticed that both Behrens and Dario Nardi, Behrens and Nardi, use the term pattern, typology pattern. I really, really like calling it a pattern because I think that it is very, very difficult to define a pattern in a specific way because, as just discussed, the pattern of your personality, it comes from both inborn characteristics and also I guess inborn, what's the other opposite of that? Unborn? No. Inborn and conditioned by the environment. So the idea is that you have your fundamental pattern, but your actions and your behavior is going to still be conditioned based on your environment and the way that every person is unique, as I was talking about earlier. I think that the 16 patterns are very fundamental, that there are these 16 patterns, but I think that the pattern is going to express itself through the external conditions. The pattern is expressing itself through how you were raised, what you do for a career, what you value, what your opinions are, the experiences you've had, all of that. And all of that matters. And I think that we all know that that matters. But it's weird because a lot of us, when we talk about personality, you've probably heard people say in the community things like, oh, well, any type can do this behavior, or any type can value these things, which is absolutely true. Any type can do anything. That's what I personally believe. But I don't often hear, or maybe I just haven't explained enough on my channel, that the reason why that is because it's almost like there's this fundamental pattern that's underneath everything that you were just born with, a pattern of expressing. And then that is it's almost like your external conditioned personality is like on top of it. And I think that when you're trying to type people, what it feels like to me is trying to find the pattern underneath the life experience that can make you be you and act in any way that you want to act. Because we do have free will. We can act in any way we want to act. So that is the difficulty, is that I think that there is what career you're in and your life experience, and what media has rubbed off on you, what sort of culture has rubbed off on you, how your parents have, and then the opinions and values that you formed because of that. It's like that's going to impact you. Because here's the thing. I have since this in 2019, I started 2 businesses. And the way that I interact with the world is different now that I have a business than it was before. That's just a fact. Does that mean I'm a thinker? No. But the way that experience has impacted me, it has almost transformed me. And I think that we all know fundamentally that experiences can transform people. So what happens if you change? Because everyone knows that you change at some point. It's like, wait, so you're telling me that I'm always this personality, like forever? And it's like, yeah, the pattern can express itself in an infinite number of ways. That's what I believe, is that the pattern, because you have free will to treat the pattern however you want. So while I believe that my type pattern is ENFJ, which means that I'm a Jungian extrovert, I'm a Jungian intuitive, Jungian feeler, Jungian judger. Also, I value Jungian FE and NI, followed by SE and then TI. I'm being a little bit pedantic here, but really it's because I see this as a pattern that is just underneath the surface, and that I have the choice of how I want to express that pattern. And and I know I've mentioned this before, but that is why I say that any type can do anything that they set their mind to, and any type can be anything that they want to be. Because if my pattern naturally gravitates toward emotions, then that means that my life challenge is that if I want every type pattern is fundamentally not balanced. And that's why, like, we all have problems. Like, not that we should, like, all become like these, lifeless, personalityless people, but it's like, let's think about it. Like, the problems I typically have involve my lower functions that aren't very conscious. They almost always are. I mean, every single fight I get into, or not every, but a lot of fights I get into have to do with me not filling up the water pitcher, or me spilling something again. And it's annoying. Or, it's me overextending myself and then, like, maybe doing a sloppy job because I forgot to rest. The problems are related to my type pattern, and it's mine to, it's like, if I want to get what I want, I can't just rely on feeling. My feeling can say, oh, this is what I want, this is what I value, this is where I want to go. And I don't believe that I can get what I want without at least engaging my thinking function. I don't think that that's possible. I think that stereotypically a lot of ENFJs are very naive and overly optimistic and overly idealistic. And why? It's because of all of the problems that come through inferior introverted thinking, and honestly, it just being too painful to go there. And if you are using typology to describe your ego, but then that's it, are you going to go there? Are you going to go to, some might call it the dark night of the soul? There are probably many names for the phenomenon that I'm talking about. Are you willing to go there? Because if all of our patterns are a little bit wonky, then it's like, I mean, Jung talks about how we overinflate our egos and we overinflate our personality, and that the individuation process is a process of coming back together again. And I really believe this, obviously. You don't have to believe it if you don't want to. But here's my point, is that I don't have a taxonomy, and I don't have a name for it. I know I saw Kat asked what the name is for it. Maybe I'll eventually come up with it. But here's how I view it, is that for thousands of years, people have been discussing these sort of dichotomies of feeling and thinking. And Carl Jung did not come up with it. Thousands of years before Christ, that people have been talking about it. You can look at, it's found in astrology, it's found in tarot, it's found in every single esoteric belief system, there is some way, shape, or form of feeling and of thinking, whether it's water for feeling, it's like the elements, water, fire, air, like earth, or it's tarot, it's the 4 suits in tarot. There are endless observations of feeling, thinking, sensing, and intuition. And I think that in Carl Jung's book, Psychological Types, he defined what he saw with his patients. He defined those 8 functions by taking the 4 fundamental sort of areas of the human psyche, and then times that by 2, extroversion and introverted. Everyone has an outer world and an inner world. This is just one lens that you can choose to see personality through, because there are definitely other layers. But what I see is that Carl Jung described what he saw, which was this essence and this pattern. Quote of the day, the introverted thinker says, Jung was just a guy. So I'm going to leave that on here actually for a bit. Jung was just a guy, and in the 20s he observed these patterns. And I guess when I'm asked what taxonomy I use, what I'm doing, really, I'm just a guy. I'm observing the patterns. So really that's how I might define it differently later on, but really I believe that there are 16 type patterns. I believe that there are 8 cognitive functions that make up those type patterns, and I believe that I'm observing the patterns through my experience with people, through my own contemplation, through my own reading of how other people have described the patterns. So yeah. And I'm also just gonna leave this up here. The introverted thinker says I've served some good TI in this video, heart, and I am flattered. Because, it's hard for me to share my thinking. It might seem like that might not seem that way. And to be honest, I'm just gonna share. She won't watch this video, so she won't know. But my INFJ girlfriend and I got in a spat recently where I mentioned that it was hard for me to share my opinions. And she got offended because she was like, yeah, right. You have no clue. You have no clue how hard it is to share your opinions. You talk all the time. Like, you have no right to say that. We got over it. We talked about it. But you can imagine why an INFJ would think that. Because I understand. I talk a lot. Like, I do. And I really do want to share my opinions. But I've also, what made me cry at that moment is just that I feel like I have done so much work on myself. And I'm not trying to brag about that or anything, but I've done so much work, and it's not easy to share my opinions. And when people are only looking at the tip of the iceberg and they don't know like what you've done to get to where you are, I just felt really invisible at that moment. And at the same time, I understand it's probably harder for an INFJ in some ways. But in some ways, it's harder for me to go against the grain of the FE and share an opinion that I've refined that not everybody is going to agree with. And I'm aware that there are going to be people watching that don't agree with what I'm saying. And that is frightening to me. But I think that that's the game. that is the individuation process. It's frightening. Self-discovery is frightening. Like, I would probably say that's the I almost want to end it there. Unless anyone has any questions of what I said, I almost want to end it there. It's frightening. It's not easy to be a better version of yourself. And I'm not trying to say that to brag, and I'm not trying to be like, look at me, I've done all this and I'm so great. But I'm just saying that what I'm doing right now and sharing my opinion is actually very, very hard for me. Even if I try and make it look easy, that's just kind of what I do. I always try and make everything look easy. So Lonnie says the only limits that we impose are the ones that we impose on ourselves, and I completely agree with that. And then Hello There says limits are like Tinkerbell, they only exist if you believe in them. Yes. Oh, and this is really, really good. Aol says, sort of like how there's an infinite number of colors in the rainbow spectrum, but when you step back, you only see 6 main patterns. We call them the main colors of the rainbow. That is exactly what I'm thinking. And also, I think that depending on what color you are, you're going to describe the pattern very, very differently. Always want to take that with a grain of salt and almost unpack try and take off the filter of the type description that I read. Is that it's almost like if yellow is trying to describe red, that's going to be different than if orange was trying to describe red. And you have to take that into consideration when you're reading. That's kind of a weird example, but I think a lot of you guys probably understand. Thank you guys for the nice comments. I don't want to put all of them up there because I don't have much to say, but I'm just seeing all the thank yous and I really appreciate it. Bosman Big says, you may not consider yourself a natural thinker or a TI user, but over the years you may have become a thinker from conditioning yourself. So it might seem that way, but I think that I have definitely not become a thinker because I always approach things from an FE perspective. The only difference is that my TI is more visible than it was before, but before it was hidden. Just as thinkers have feelings that they don't know how to share, it doesn't mean if you were to be really rude to like an INTP or like an ENTJ with inferior feeling, if you were going to like bully them or be rude to them, just because they don't cry about it doesn't mean that that doesn't leave a mark. And everyone knows that, like, but you might say a developed thinker might be more open about their feelings or might know how to handle them better. And so I think that, if an ENFJ tries to develop their thinking, it doesn't mean that I'm going to suddenly not approach things from an FE perspective, because I do. But my goal is really it's really integrating it is the thing. And I can talk more about integrating in another video. I don't really know a better word to use here because it's not changing, it's integrating. It's just allowing that TI to come through a little bit more. So this actually brings me to another point. Sam says, I just want to let you know I really love this channel. Ever since the recent synchronic episodes have been released, I went back to the start since I'm new to the channel. Thank you so much. And that actually reminds me, I wanted to let you guys know before I end this live stream that I will be returning to Synchronic Saturdays. As I mentioned, I started a new job, I'm on a new schedule, and Crystal is changing up her schedule as well. And so there just was too many weeks in a row where we missed the date to film it.
But we're going to finish the last series we were on, and also try and expand even more to bring that podcast into being not just about describing and defining what the functions are, but a little bit meta about. That's why I even called it Synchronic Saturdays to begin with, is because I didn't want to call it Megan and Crystal's Cognitive Functions show or the MBTI show or the personality show. Is that I want to allow that to grow with us. And not that I'm not going to be talking about functions on that show, but we might go more into like specific behavioral patterns with the functions that might happen, or just other ways of, I eventually, before I die, want to have some sort of roadmap for how each functions can integrate. But I know, I mean, I think about that nonstop, but I don't know the answer yet. So that's kind of what I've realized, that with that podcast is like, with each topic, like when I've done the lower vibe, higher vibe function thing, it's like I don't even realize what I think about that thing until we start talking. And so I want to continue to do that so that it can be, you guys can see as my thoughts develop over time. So it's not like, and I think that that's fun, because a lot of times I just am like, oh, hey, I thought this idea and now here it is. But I want to be able to like show how those ideas have come up as well. And also, hello there says, always try and make everything look easy. Well said, Meg. Okay. But will you eventually elaborate on how Enneagram relates to type? Just curious. I would definitely be interested in that. And I know Kat, Passionate, if you're still here and if you're still watching, I would love to bring on some Enneagram experts on the show. I know that I just called it the show, the channel, whatever. But also, I would like to, I mean, I know about Enneagram. I just never really feel inspired to say anything myself, because I'm more so interested in musing with things that I've thought of than like sharing facts about it. And for whatever reason, I'm just not as connected with learning about it as much as the type patterns. But, and I might be interviewed by another channel who might type my Enneagram. I don't know when, but yeah. Thank you, guys. So Ael says, so basically we all have different color filters trying to look at other colors, so a color will always look different to different people. Absolutely. That is very true. And I think that the socionics interaction styles, I like the way that socionics sort of describes, I guess, the ways that the different colors look at each other. Obviously there are more ways to look at that, but I do think that that's the case. Like, you can tell when you're reading a book that's written by an INTJ talking about the types versus written by an ENFJ talking about the types, or an ENFP, is that, I mean, even like for me, whenever I talk about NJs, when I talk about NFJs, a lot of NFJs relate and are like, oh my gosh, that's my life. But with other types, when I try and talk about them, I do my best, but there's always going to be a comment of someone saying, like, I didn't quite relate to this. And I can only do the best I can, and I can only learn from what you guys say. But that's just going to be the case for everyone. So your chill ISFJ says, when people make fun of my worries, inferior NE, I feel so off because change and such is so disorienting to me. We need a lot of grace for our inferior and how we all relate to each other's inferior too. That is very true, because I think that if we don't know what our type pattern is, and we don't know what someone else's is, or if we are operating off of the wrong type pattern and we don't really understand, or I mean, I think there are people that understand people really well that don't know type, that just kind of get this in their own right. But if we don't know, then we might be judging someone based on our standards, which is not fair. Like if I was to judge your chill ISFJ and be like, why are you so worried about the future? Like, come on, change happens, like get over it or something, that would be like really rude and insensitive to something that is an ISFJ's like big life struggle. So yeah, I think that Flow State asked if I did the SE vibe video. I'm actually not sure. I think that might be one that's left to be done, or that I need to do still. Okay. This is a really good question. Heather says, do you believe that developing your inferior function necessarily involves sacrificing some of your dominant function? Do you have a finite amount of time, energy, ability to be distributed? So I'm not quite sure a quick answer to that, but I'll just say that I think that as much as I hate to admit it, we do have a limited amount of time and energy, at least per day. But I don't think that it's not about changing who you are, and I know you probably know that. I think so. For example, I have had to retrain my brain that if I worry about what everybody thinks all the time, and if I cannot say no to the projects that I don't want to invest in, then what's going to happen is that I'm going to be a tired, worthless piece of shit who can't help anybody or do anything. And so if I can just take some time to think things through and set some boundaries and be more discerning about my time, then maybe, just maybe, I can do something actually that actually helps people. And so from that example, it's sort of like I have to almost let go of some of FE's natural instincts and let in some TI, but I don't think I'm like not using FE because the reason is still so that I can help people. It's not like I'm saying, oh, you should stop thinking about people and instead think about yourself. I don't think it's as simple as, like, I guess I don't think it's like a seesaw of like less of that, more of this. I think that it's sort of like, I need to allow this in order to do the thing I want to do, if that makes sense. So So ALF says, will you ever grow out of personality typing? I want to grow with it in the sense that I think that I'm always going to be aware of the cognitive functions and the 16 type patterns. I'm not sure if I'll always be literally offering typing services, and I'm probably going to include other topics as I feel, because I'm interested in other topics, but I see them as very fundamental and that I can expand on them in lots of ways. And I think that personality is becoming a lot more popular so that there's more of us in the type community to where I don't just have to talk about what is an INFP, what is an INTP, and I can talk more about other things while also sort of mentioning personality. So, I think I'm going to end it here, but I really appreciate everyone here. Cedric, I know you asked, I'm going to just touch on this, I guess, because I feel bad leaving it, not talking about this, but it's a bit of a random question. How can you tell if you have value? I'm just going to be a jerk and answer, you do have value. So it's really about who do you have value to, because you're not going to have value to everyone. But you have inherent value, and it's like up to you to choose what you want to value, but you have an inherent skill. So, okay, since I know you're an NTP, I'm going to talk to you as in your language here and say that you probably know that you have strengths and weaknesses, and you probably know that there are some things you're really skilled at. And so your skill might be something that could be of value to someone else, and it might be hard to value it yourself, but there's still an inherent value whether or not you see it because of its ability to do things for others, or even just because yourself, if you have an interest in something, then you probably value it. So I don't know if that helps, but yeah. Yeah, thank you guys. Oh, one more thing. Grace says, yes, I think that when we actually rob from the dominant too much, it can cause a grip rather than a healthy perspective. Real growth seems much more about integration when they work together. That is a very, very great way of putting it, because I know that a lot of people talk about the grip as a thing, and I think that for an ENFJ, the grip would be something like, I don't care about any of you guys. I think what I want, and F you, because I get to do whatever I want, sort of thing. As opposed to, I'm going to actually develop my opinions and be more discerning about things so that I can do better and allow my heart to be even more, to give even more. It's not about giving less, because if I use my TI a little bit more, I'm going to be able to give even more than I ever could, because I'm going to be able to acquire more resources than I ever could. So anyway, thank you guys so much. Seriously, it's been great to just chat. And thank you for listening. So have a wonderful rest of your day. I guess that's my little tagline. So yeah, subscribe if you aren't already subscribed, and I will see you in the next video.